Good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adrianna.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are uplifting positive stories. Welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Positive Stories. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yeah, I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving weekend and is recovering from the weekend of plentiful eating. At least I'm in recovery a little bit.
Yeah, hope everybody had a great weekend. We are back at it again with another fun episode here. I'm really excited about these stories. We've got quite a few lined up for today. And our episode is all about today embracing our unique path and not comparing ourselves to other people, because that is something that is so easy to do and something that I think can really kind of set us back in life is comparing ourselves, whether that be thinking that we're behind, because sometimes we set these unrealistic goals of I have to be doing this by age 30, or I have to be at this point in my life financially by age 40. And we put these unrealistic expectations on ourselves. And when we're comparing it to ourselves to other people, sometimes that can make us feel depressed if we're not meeting those timelines, those arbitrary timelines we're setting in our head. Or it can sometimes even make us feel a little jealous of other people that are hitting those timelines that we want to be hitting. And that's not always a good place to be. So, yeah.
Key is don't be jealous.
Don't be jealous, and
easier said than done.
Don't be frustrated when you're missing timelines that you've set for yourself, because everyone is on their own unique journey, and sometimes things take a little longer than you want to get there, or things don't work out the way we always had planned for them to. So giving ourselves a little bit of slack when it comes to those arbitrary things, those timelines that we set in our heads, and also not being jealous or envious of people that we think are doing better or more successful than we are, and coming at that from a different perspective. So
I think it's safe to say that there's going to be a little bit of initial negativity with some of the stories, as we're talking about not meeting our own expectations or comparing to others. You know, this, as listeners of the podcast should know by now, like, we don't stray away from pretend like negative things don't exist, but it's how we learn from them and grow from them and respond to them that adds a more positive perspective at the end of the day.
Yep. So, yeah, lots to dive into today. It's kind of a multifaceted topic, I feel like. All right, so our first story for today comes from the subreddit Writing, and it is titled, I'm 34 and late. The story says, I have two big regrets in life. The first is that I started writing online way too late. I am 34, and this is my first year building an online presence. When I began, I'd read posts from other bloggers and feel an overwhelming sense of what if. I kept thinking, if only I'd started 10 years ago, I'd be so much further ahead. This thought loop hit me hard and often froze my progress. I felt lost, unsure of my path, and deeply intimidated. For months, I avoided committing fully to writing. Instead, I dabbled in other creative pursuits, like making YouTube videos, hoping they'd fill the gap. But deep down, I knew I was holding myself back. Writing was what I wanted to do. I just wasn't ready to face the challenges head on. Things finally began to shift when I studied the creator economy more seriously and started writing consistently on Twitter. In just 4 months, I gained over 1,000 followers and landed my first high-ticket client. That's when my second regret surfaced. Writing daily made me realize something important. I wasn't struggling because of external factors. I was standing in my own way. Writing isn't as simple as putting words on paper. It's a process. It starts with collecting ideas, moves to connecting those ideas, and finally ends with creating. The first two, collecting and connecting, are uniquely human. They require thought, creativity, and perspective. When I embraced these parts of writing and leaned into the work I truly enjoyed, everything started clicking. Writing became less of a struggle and more of a practice, a space to grow, connect, and create something meaningful. This journey has taught me to focus on my strengths, let go of perfection, and keep moving forward no matter how late I feel that I've started. Have you ever felt held back by starting late? What's helped you move past it? And the main reason I included this was actually because of the first comment on this post. Someone said, Harper Lee was 34 when To Kill a Mockingbird was published. Tolkien was 45 when The Hobbit came out. Plenty of people have written their first novels even later in life. You definitely should not wallow in regret that you didn't pick up something sooner. Maybe you found your way to it exactly because of that fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this Tolkien's one that came to mind of people who
Yeah.
later in life wrote their works that they became well known for. And there's a lot of people out there and a lot of professions that started later in the game than you would anticipate. You know, it's not the most famous one. For some reason it popped in my head. Like I think his name Brendan Gleeson, dad of Donald Gleeson. Like he pretty late into the acting game as well.
Really? I didn't know
he had a
that.
whole career in life before that, and he didn't come until after his kids were already like full, like raised and grown and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, speaking of that, the end of our episode, in place of an article today, we have a bunch of big lists that I found of people, celebrities that we all know of different careers that started late in life. And so we'll kind of dive into those a little bit later. But yeah, I think it's so interesting that we put these expectations on ourselves that I've got to make it big by this age or else I can't start later than that. And that's just not true.
Right.
There's, as you said, like Brendan Gleeson, there's so many people that start late in life and then they hit their stride. There's people that completely change careers and have made it big in doing something completely different than what they thought they would be doing 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we put these expectations, and I think sometimes when we're comparing ourselves to other people and saying, oh, I missed the mark, I can't start now, it's too late, we get in our own way. And we start kind of doubting ourselves. And when you're doubting yourself, especially with something that's creative, like writing, it's really hard to kind of push past that and to be able to create when there's a voice in the back of your head drowning out that creativity saying, you're too late for this. Why are you wasting your time? Like, you should be doing something else because you're too late. You know? So I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, you don't want to use that as like an excuse to just put it off or just for the sake of putting it off, you know?
Right.
You know, like, well, I got time. I don't need to worry about it.
Right,
And like,
yeah.
If you really want to pursue it, you should still try your best to pursue it and take actionable steps
even if
as
it's
best
baby
you
steps,
I would
yeah.
say, like, try to lay out, again, I say this like not a well practicer of the preach here, laying out small actionable steps and goals rather than like the big, I'm going to write this whole book now and go,
Right.
you know, and I'm going to get it published. Like, start small, one page at a time, you know, that kind of a thing. And then, but the longer you put it off, it does get harder and harder. But
It
then
does.
again, it sounds like it worked out for them that they've picked it up and now they're writing and now they're approaching with a whole different perspective, a whole different worldview and knowledge
Exactly.
than it would have been before. Maybe it would have, I mean, I'm sure there's some people who do go out there and they crank out a lot of writings and stuff and they just aren't to a certain quality or something. They just don't do well. They don't perform. They get burnt out from it and they just give up on
And
the
they
dream.
give up, right.
And not just that they put it off, but they straight up just like quit and give up because of
Right.
the burnout, you know? Or maybe not. I don't know. Everyone's journey is different here.
Everyone's
So you
on
don't
their own
know
unique journey.
what could have happened if you had done it sooner. But I understand the feeling of like you feel like you had lost time. Though it sounds like
Right.
they were still being creative. It's not
Right.
like they just sat around and did nothing. Like they
nothing.
were building their career at a different route or expressing their creativity in a different kind of way. Like that's still making YouTube videos. Here we are on YouTube right now. Is still doing something productive and creative and not too. I mean, I don't know what the content of his
Right.
YouTube videos were, but it's not too like very
Dissimilar.
far off. It's not like he was wanting to be a doctor and then he was doing something completely different from that. You know,
Exactly.
At least there's some kind of comparison. Even in that scenario, like you're still learning another perspective of things that could influence your writing and your future work in some capacity that wouldn't otherwise. You know, maybe
Right.
people will find your writing more interesting because of that. I don't know.
Right.
We don't
And there was
know.
actually a comment that someone pointed out. I unfortunately did not save it, but this occurred to me when you were saying that. Someone mentioned, well, just think about the difference in perspective from an 18-year-old writing a story versus a 34-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's going to be very different. I mean, I used to write books when I was in high school. If I were to write that same book now, it would be vastly different. And because I have a lot more perspectives and knowledge, I think it would probably be better.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes don't look at it as, oh, I've shot myself in the foot in a way by waiting too long. It's like you said, they might have gained more along the way. So when they actually do try to write a book for the first time, like an actual novel, they might hit it out of the park the first time. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it might be better. You might have gained more in the process of that waiting time. like you said, through other pursuits that they've done, more experiences they've had, stuff like that. So yeah, very, very interesting. And that goes for all kinds of fields for sure. So
It is also easy to see other people, who are in your field already doing it.
right.
And again, if adding that feeling that, oh, I'm behind because other people are
Right.
often doing it, and that doesn't mean that you're on the wrong path necessarily or that your
Right.
time won't come.
And going off of that, that actually, real quick, just because it's a good segue. I found another story, and this one came from the subreddit Wholesome. It's very short, but it's titled "He Made the Right Move." The picture is of two men that are looking at a TV mount on a wall, and the caption says, "I noticed a guy on Facebook that was better than me at mounting TVs, so instead of hating on him, I reached out and I offered to pay him to teach me how to perfect my craft. He didn't accept the money. Instead, we formed a partnership, and the rest is history. Brothers don't hate, we elevate each other." And so that's a good example, I think, of seeing somebody that is further along in something that you're trying to pursue, and instead of looking at it and be like, oh shoot, I failed, I'm not that at that point, and they're clearly ahead of me at my age, look at it as a possibility to grow. And not every time will someone be open to that and be like, yeah, I'll teach you. Some people are competitive in the field and maybe won't do that, but you never know. And so by taking that approach of reaching out and saying, hey, I'll pay you to teach me how to do what you're doing so I can get better, they ended up forming a partnership, and that's pretty cool. So you never know. Instead of looking at it with jealousy and looking at yourself in a self-deprecating way, use it as a fuel to get better. Look into those things that, okay, I see they did that. Why did they do it that way? And look into it yourself to try to better yourself. And that way, that's a different way of looking at it rather than jealousy. And it can help you rather than hinder you.
Yeah, what a good act of humility, too, to be able to suck in your own pride and say, okay, I'm not as good as this person.
Yeah.
Please help me.
Right. So, super cool. Yeah. And now you have a story for us.
I do.
That you are going
this
to
kind of
share.
continues the idea of don't be jealous or the dangers of jealousy.
Yeah. Which is easier said than done. It's hard.
So I found this on Best of Reddit Updates.
Okay.
Which originally was posted on True Off My Chest.
Okay.
The title goes, "I'm so jealous of my sister's marriage that it sickens me. I even snooped on her husband looking for evidence he's actually crap. I'm ashamed." All right, so this is what I mentioned earlier about there's going to be some negativity initially, but I swear there's a positive outcome or there's a positive lesson to be learned from this. My sister and her husband always seemed to have a good marriage. They've been together for around a decade, but you never really know, right? And to be honest, I thought they were just pretending since I've never had a relationship that was super good in private. Well, now I do know. I've been living with them for 3 months. They took me in when my ex cheated on me. They do nice things for each other all the time, and it's like they don't even think about it. It's just natural. They're always bringing each other little presents. My ex called me shallow and I wanted him to give me even a cheap present for my birthday. Their eyes light up when they look at each other. My ex looked at me like I was a potato. They hug each other as though they haven't seen each other in months whenever one of them gets home. My ex ignored me when I got home, / wanted me to, quote, leave him the F alone to effing relax, end quote, whenever he got home. They encourage each other's hobbies and outside friendships. My ex hated my friends and thought my hobbies were stupid. Worse yet, I can tell they're holding back when it comes to being affectionate around me. I arrived home early from an event one day and saw her sitting in his effing lap while they watched TV and he played with her hair. The stuff I see is apparently just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how much they like each other. They've been through some tough crap, deaths, a miscarriage, job losses that can tear couples apart, but they made it through just fine, I guess. I honestly didn't think relationships like this were real. I thought it was Hallmark BS and that all relationships are miserable, hard work once you get past the honeymoon stage. I couldn't believe it, so I snooped on her husband, let's call him Max. It turns out his private communications are fine. He had conversations with female friends, but they were only platonic. And he even talked about how much he loves my sister, let's call her Sandra. Anyway, I felt extremely guilty about snooping that I confessed. They forgave me. My sister took me out for the day without Max and told me she's been in crappy relationships before Max, which I already knew, and that she thinks they helped her learn how to spot red flags so that she'd be available when the right person for her finally came along. She's also gone to therapy for a long time, and she says it helped her learn how to make healthy relationship choices and be a good partner. Max and Sandra offered to pay for me to go to therapy. My insurance isn't great, so that's nice. I just want to find something like what they have. There's a silver lining, though, I guess. Now that I know this kind of relationship isn't a childish fantasy, I don't think I'll ever be able to put up with somebody like my ex again.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously a lot of comparisons being made there between every nice thing that was said about her sister and brother-in-law's life. It was immediately followed by the exact opposite from her experience with her ex.
Yeah, right.
So a lot of direct comparisons going on there.
Right. And I understand too that idea that that's a Hallmark movie that doesn't exist because unfortunately, as we've talked a lot about this with podcasts, the negative voices are often the louder ones.
Mm-hmm.
And so the stuff you see is often stuff people complaining about things going on with their significant other, not the good stuff, unfortunately. And so with that, it can sometimes seem like a fantasy to people that could exist for them. And unfortunately, with that mindset, it's really hard to find a good partner then. Versus if, as her sister mentioned, that because of those bad relationships, she was like, I know now what to spot as a red flag and to cut it off and not go any further with it and be looking for the right one and someone that doesn't do those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you approach it like that, that's going to set you up for a lot more success in dating and relationships because you're expecting a good, healthy relationship. And if it's anything less than that, you know that you don't deserve that and you don't continue on with it, which is, again, it's a really, really hard journey to go through. And it's not easy in the slightest. So I can completely understand what she's going through. And I think that's amazing that they offered to pay for her therapy because therapy ain't cheap at all.
Especially if your insurance won't cover it.
Yeah, it can get really, really expensive. So the fact that they are willing to do that for her is huge because therapy can really, really help when you're trying to find somebody.
Mm-hmm. A couple comments here. Someone commented, "It sounded like you wanted someone to be as miserable as you were to feel less alone, and I hope that therapy truly helps you heal and find value in yourself. Your sister and her partner sound amazing, and I'm glad they are able to help you." To which OOP responded, "You've nailed it. The more I saw my sister and Max being happy, the more I felt worse and worse about myself and my life and all the time I've wasted in bad relationships." Back to wasted time.
Right.
I hope the therapy helps me too. Sandra and Max are good people. I need to be more appreciative. It's hard when I'm so jealous, but it's important. I'm also glad they're able to help me. I feel pathetic needing the help, but I do need it.
Yeah. I will also say, it's been really, really interesting for me with working as a wedding videographer, seeing people's private vows and stuff. And I won't go into like super specifics or anything because obviously they're private vows for a reason. But it is so interesting to me how often it has come up of I went through a lot of bad eggs before I found the right one, or I went through a long time thinking I wasn't going to find the right one. And I went through thinking that I'd missed my chance because I'm in my 30s now, or things like that people have said that they thought, well, I'm too late in life now, I'm not going to find the right one, and then they did, and they're just so happy in love when they are saying these things and crying and like just so emotional, and I'm just so happy for them because it's like you went through I can see the pain you must have gone through of thinking no one's going to love me like that. That's a Hallmark fantasy. And then they find that person, the right one for them. And it's beautiful. So, yeah, I think it's so easy for a lot of people to think that they're not going to find that happy ending. And sometimes it comes a lot later than you thought, but better late than never, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you do find it, you won't worry so much about that wasted time. You know, it sounds weird to say, but, you know.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's from what I've seen from a lot of couples.
Yeah.
And I feel like that can go for other things besides just like romantic relationships as well, but friendships and stuff. Some people struggle to find that right friend or the right friend group, especially when they're in high school and college and stuff. And you might think, oh, I'm going to be alone. Like, I'm not going to have friends. Sometimes it's just you have to find them at the right time in your life. and when you're ready for that. And you won't know when that is, but when it happens, it'll be the right fit. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. Obviously, I'm not a professional therapist or anything. I don't know any of these things. I'm just speaking from life experience, but it's different for everybody. Because again, we're all on our own unique journey, and that's why we can't compare with other people, because everyone goes through their own stuff. But
yeah, the rest of the comments are basically encouraging the therapy and saying, one comment saying you should take the offer of therapy. Your view on relationships is incredibly skewed, and sub sessions might help untangle some of it so you can view the dating world with a bit of optimism. Once you do that, you're on your way to finding a healthy relationship. Good luck, friend. To which OOP said, I'm accepting the offer. I even have an appointment set up.
Good. That's awesome.
So it sounds like she's doing it.
Yeah.
Update.
Yay.
16 months later.
Yay.
Hi, I'm the psycho who snooped in my brother-in-law's messages because I thought it was impossible for men to be great to their partners. I'm not sure exactly where to start, so I'm going to use a list format and just write stuff in whatever order it comes to mind. I started therapy very soon after my post. My first therapist wasn't great, so my sister Sandra encouraged me to find another, and my second one was awesome. I'm still seeing him once every 2 weeks. He's helped me a lot with healing from the trauma of my last relationships and also learning how to relate to others in a more healthy way in every part of my life. He also really helped me learn how to manage bitterness and jealousy, finding the underlying causes and working on those. I moved out of my sister and brother-in-law's house after a couple months. It turns out that my sister and brother-in-law were secretly livid about the snooping, but they appreciated that I confessed on my own and decided to be kind and help me. They decided that if I took advantage of the help they offered and put effort into being better, they would forgive me. I didn't realize how close I was to making my sister go low contact with me. Thankfully, I did take their help. I'm not upset seeing how loving my brother-in-law is to my sister anymore. I'm happy for her. They became foster parents after I moved out and are now in the process of adopting the little girl they've been fostering. They are literally the perfect, all caps, people to be nurturing a traumatized child. They're doing so great, and the little girl, let's call her Maddie, is doing so much better than when she was first placed with them. She's an amazing girl, and she and my sister and brother-in-law are so lucky they've all found each other. I've been single the whole time. That was on purpose. A few months ago, though, I determined that I'd be open to dating again. I didn't want to actively do anything, no dating sites, but I decided I wouldn't purposely avoid dating anymore. A week ago, a guy I became friends with at an animal shelter I started volunteering at about 6 months ago asked me out. I said yes. Our first date was great. He's very kind. He's the guy you go to if you need to calm down a traumatized, terrified animal. He cleans diarrhea-coated animal carriers without any complaint. My sister approves of him. He's very funny too. So that's the update.
Nice. That's awesome. I like that she took some time to not date. I think that's also really important when you are going through that of kind of working on yourself and finding out what you need/want in a relationship. I think that's really important. And, you know, they often say that you find the right one when you're not looking for one and you're not actively making strides.
I know, that's the worst thing to hear when you're the single person that's like waiting for that to
Literally.
happen. But we swear it's true. But I understand that probably angers you to hear that. I know it angered me when I heard that, but it's true. Anyways.
Yeah, but it is true though. Like, I remember when we actually met, literally the month before that, I kind of swore off dating and I was like, I'm done with guys. I'm done with dating. I'm just going to work on myself and I'm just going to enjoy college and I'm just not even going to worry about dating at all.
I almost dropped out a month or two before
Literally
meeting you,
that.
so.
And then within a couple weeks, I met him and we just started talking. We kind of became friends really, really fast. And then that turned into a relationship really, really fast. And the rest is history. And now we've been together for, what, 9 years? 8 years?
Yeah, almost 9 years. Almost
yeah.
9 years.
So.
And that's why we have a podcast.
No, we're still figuring stuff out.
But that's how I like to your telling a story to your kids, and that's how I met, and that's how I started a podcast.
Oh my God. But yeah, I agreed though that it's the last thing you want to hear is that you need to stop actively searching to find the right one. But for some reason, I've heard from a lot of people that that's what happened. So,
but in this case, she made that statement after she's already gone through the healing and stuff, and like given that time that I'm not dating, I'm not gonna, because it's not right for me at this point in my life. I got to figure out my stuff on my own before involving another person into the the situation, you know?
Yeah. Another little minor thing too, just to point out too about the first therapist not being the right fit, and then finding another one, being encouraged to find another one. That I've heard. I haven't experienced that myself per se, but I've heard that can really be the case, where your first therapist might not be the right match. The second therapist might not be the right match. It's hard to find a right match sometimes, but then it seems like when you do, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind too, is that not every therapy session the first time is going to be a perfect fit. You know? So
It's like any relationship with the person.
right, exactly. We're all complicated people, so it makes sense that to find the right one, it's a little bit tricky. But once you do find the right one, it can be extremely helpful. So that's awesome that they encourage her to keep trying, despite the first one not being the right fit. But yeah, what an awesome update. That's awesome. So
And listen, I get sometimes people's lives look better than yours. Maybe they are. It's their life. It's different. Maybe they got some stuff going on under the hood that we don't know about. But also maybe they don't. And we definitely shouldn't hope that they have bad stuff under the hood, you know, in a way to make your life seem better.
right.
You know, though there are people out there that can relate to your story and you can feel on level with, you know, but I don't know. It's such a, you know, hurt people wishing that other people were just as hurt as they are.
Because we feel alone. That's what it comes down to. It's hard, and especially with social media, when you're seeing, and I know this sounds such like a cliche thing to talk about, but how social media is most of the time people portraying the good things that are going on in their life. And so when we see those things, it's really hard to not compare. When somebody's going on a trip to Europe for 3 months or something, and you're like, why can't I afford that? Things like that. Or someone lands a huge career and you're like, I've been working at my career for years and I haven't seen that kind of a promotion. It's so easy to compare, but we're all on our different journeys and we're all in different places, and sometimes the things that we learn along the way might become more valuable down the road at a later date. Like just like that first story about with the writing. You know, you might not reach that career place that someone else reached at the same age, but maybe by the time you get there, it'll feel even more impactful because you have gained so much along the way that when you do get there, you're going to hit the ground running. You don't know. Everyone's on their own path, and that can go for so many things. So yeah, just if you see somebody that's in a place in life and you're like, I wish I was in that place, we have to try to change our perspective from, I can't believe that they're posting about that, like trying to rub it in my face, or, oh, I wish I had that. Oh, there must be something bad that there's going on in their life though. Change it to instead, what are some actionable steps? If I truly do want that to be my life, what are some actionable steps that I can do for myself that could maybe help me to get there? And we talk sometimes about the positive benefits of AI. One that I've heard, and I'm like interested to kind of try it out. I'm curious. Someone posted about, my mom's actually the one that brought this up to me, but someone posted about how they went on ChatGPT, which is free to use, and said, I want to be X career, or I want to achieve this thing in the next 10 years. What are some small actionable steps I can take to get there? And apparently, ChatGPT will give you a very detailed breakdown of like, here's some small steps you can take to get to that place. Obviously, it's not surefire that you're going to get there with those steps. But even if we take small baby steps, they're still going to teach you something, or they're going to get you a little bit closer to where you want to be potentially. So that's something, maybe if you're feeling stuck and there's something that you see that you want to achieve, but you just don't know how to get there, maybe that's something to look into and see if you can find some ideas or Google what are some steps to get there, and then just start taking the baby steps that you can to achieving that thing, even if it's just a tiny, tiny thing. And that might help you to relieve some of that maybe jealousy that we feel or things like that. So, and again, when we say all these things, we're talking to ourselves too and brainstorming ideas. So yeah, things that we can do to kind of, I don't know, relieve jealousy, relieve comparisons, relieve feeling like we are failing or not hitting those milestones that we want to be hitting at a certain point. So,
yeah.
with that, before I end off the episode today, I have a couple lists here. One is from Business Insider that I'm going to start with. I'm just going to list off a few that I think are very recognizable to most people of 31 celebrities who found fame later in life. And yeah, just interesting ones that I had not known about. So, first one, Samuel L. Jackson was in his 40s when he became an A-list movie star.
Same is kind of true with Harrison Ford. He was
Yeah.
he was a carpenter before. Well, he was a carpenter on the set of the movie too.
That's what I heard, right?
Before
he
being
didn't know how to
Han
ride.
Solo.
Was it him that didn't know how to ride a horse when he accepted the role and had to like learn how to ride a horse for it? Or was that a different actor? I could be thinking of someone else, but
Could
I think
be a couple actors.
he like said, "Yeah, I know how to ride a horse," because they asked him when he got the role, and he was like, "I need to go learn a horse before we got on a set," because I said I did. So
That also might have been Viggo Mortensen.
I can't
Maybe.
remember who it was.
I don't know.
It was one of those two. But
There
yeah,
are definitely actors out there that have had that story though.
yeah, but just funny. So, anyways, back to Samuel L. Jackson. He apparently was big into social activism before he turned to acting in the 1970s and 1980s. And it wasn't until 1991 that he really started getting actual big attention in the movie industry in Jungle Fever. And then obviously Pulp Fiction in 1994. But yeah, according to Business Insider, I don't know if this is still accurate because this was from 2018, but it said that he had made more money at the box office than any other actor alive at that point, which is crazy. So, and he didn't really hit his huge stride until he was in his 40s. So that's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Another one, Lucille Ball, the star of I Love Lucy, was 40 when she started starring in that. I thought that was pretty crazy. From there, she ended up doing a bunch of 4 spin-off sitcoms, and she actually ran her own TV production company. But it wasn't until she was 40 that she started starring in I Love Lucy. So that's crazy. Alan Rickman was 42 when he became famous for Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
He was in little roles, I think, up until that point, mostly theater. A lot of big theater roles. But yeah, it wasn't until Die Hard that he really started getting cast in a lot of major movies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of crazy. Another list here. This one came from Develop Good Habits, and it's food for thought. 35 people who became successful later in life. Colonel Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
He left school in 7th grade, worked several jobs, often quitting in anger or getting fired. When he turned 40, he opened a small gas station, opened a small restaurant in the apartment next to his station, and from there his business took off. So KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, didn't start it till he was 40 years old.
I hear they're doing all right.
I hear they're doing okay.
I think.
Laurel Ingalls Wilder, she, let's see here, she was in her 40s when she started writing, and it wasn't until she was in her 60s that she wrote Little House in the Big Woods, which is obviously a really, really well-known book, and she began to gain a following and write the rest of the books.
I know what that is.
You don't? Little House on the Prairie?
Oh, Little House on the Prairie I've heard of, yeah.
Yeah, that's her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's huge. But
Listen,
she wasn't
it's outside
until-
of movies. My knowledge is rather limited.
I understand.
In
I mean,
terms
it's
of pop culture.
a little behind our time. Maybe we're a little young, I guess. But yeah, she was in her 60s when she wrote that. I thought that was crazy. Stan Lee. He wasn't until he was in his 40s that he started moving up in the ranks, writing comics. Obviously, huge deal. Wrote a lot of the Marvel comics we know today. So yeah, pretty crazy. He was in his 40s. This one's funny. Joseph A. Campbell, the guy who made condensed tomato soup, Campbell's tomato soup. Yeah, he made that. Let's see here. He started the canned goods company at the age of 52, and tomato soup, for the first condensed soup, which obviously is a huge thing, but has sold tons and tons and tons of it. He didn't create that till he was 78 years old.
Whoa.
Which is crazy to think. So, and our last one for today. Bob Ross, he enlisted in the Air Force, where he spent 20 years yelling orders after dropping out of school in ninth grade, and he taught himself to paint in order to relax after being in the Air Force. And at the age of 41 is when he gained fame for his quick painting style. So he was 40 years old when he started painting for that kind of stuff. So crazy.
It's not too late, guys.
It's never too late. You can be in your 80s and suddenly have a huge success. And another thing to point out is that you don't have to have a huge success to be successful. Success is whatever you deem it to be. Just because you don't have a nationally known brand or a nationally known movie or whatever it is, you can be successful doing anything. It could even just be being a stay-at-home parent or being a teacher in a small school or anything that you want to be, is as long as you think it's a success for you, that's your own unique journey, and that's awesome. You don't have to be a multi-millionaire with a huge mansion. Whatever you think is a success, as long as you can get there and you're happy about it, you're a success.
Very true.
Yeah. With that, we will end today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you'll tune in next week on Wednesday for our next episode, which is all about deepening our understanding of others. So we've got a bunch of really interesting stories.
Jealous.
Well, that's not the theme for next
Listen,
week.
they
but
build
that
off each other. They connect. They
Yes.
connect. You
Yes.
know, we've talked about things on this episode that relate to the last episode unintentionally, but I think there's some comparison. So go
course.
back and listen to the last episode if you haven't. And you like this one enough.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, if you have a positive story that you'd like to share, or a news story that you've seen that you think has some hopeful news in it, please feel free to send that to us at upliftingpositivestories@gmail.com, or you can post them on our subreddit, which is Uplift Positive Stories. So we'd love to hear your stories, and we may even share them on a future podcast episode. That'd be awesome if you could send them in. If you're watching on YouTube, if you would like to like and subscribe, that would be awesome. We love the support. And yeah, we just hope that you'll tune in next week. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.
And stay positive.